Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 12 o'clock on a Sunday, which means it's time for a Q&A. Now, this is where I take all the questions that you've asked over the course of the week, and I try to answer them to the best of my ability. First of all, thank you for all of the questions that you continue to ask every single week. This Q&A lives and dies by the questions that you ask. So the more questions, the better. Nothing is off the table. I will answer absolutely everything. If I don't get to your question, I'm very sorry. I promise I will get to it the following week. So without further ado, let's have a look at this week's questions. So the first question is from Davis West, and Davis says, I've just seen the trailer for the new boombox of Penguin. It seems like an excellent product. I was wondering if I'm allowed to ask if any of the components of the box have magnets in them. Based on what I've seen in the trailer, I'm worried that if I took the cards out of the box after the switch, the secret gimmick would slide out the box. Right, so I'm going to do a review show special on the boombox at some point, but let me try and answer a couple of questions. You asked a very good question there. Let me answer a few of the questions that have been asked to me. Especially on places like the Magic Cafe. Basically, the boombox has just come out from Penguin. Illusionist have bought out something called a Parsons box at roughly the same time. And then there's been other switch boxes as well, like the Romero switch box and so on and so forth. So a lot of questions are, what are the differences? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? This is the sort of thing I do in a review show special. But as you've answered the questions, keep it really brief. I've been involved with the Boombox project for about 6 months. I know Andrew Niner sent this to Penguin at least 3 years ago, and they've been sitting on it for quite a while, like most production companies do. You would be amazed at how long a trick will sit for various different reasons before it's released. So I've got something with poker chips, with Murphys, and I went to them with this. It was way before the Quantum Deck, and they've been in various stages of production since then. Like, since way before the Quantum Deck. Like, we're at a point now where we've actually got the artwork for the poker chips. But this is like probably about a year and a half after signing the contract for the product. So some products take a lot longer, some products take a lot shorter. But a lot of the time when the trick comes out, it's been in development for a long time. So I know Boombox have been with Penguin for quite a while. I got involved in this a few months ago. And the guys at Penguin said, hey, we've got this amazing switch box. Have a look at it, and can you come up with some routines? And that's something that I do for a lot of different companies. I'll get asked to, you probably saw it on the Orphic wallet. I contributed a whole bunch of stuff to the Orphic wallet from a magician's point of view, right? That's something I do with lots of different production companies. And I'll look at the product, and if I think it's good and I think it's got merit, I'll take it on as a product, and I'll start to create routines for it, right? So I got involved with the Boombox a few months ago, and probably about 6 months ago now, something like that. And I've been working it since then, coming up with routines. It was very easy to come up with a stat load of routines in the Boombox. Probably came up with about 30 or 40. And then just before Magic Live, when I went to film with Penguin, one of the things that we filmed live performances for and explanations was the Boombox, right? So, and I think we ended up with 10 routines. I whittled it down to what I thought were the 10 best. So what is the Boombox? It's basically, I describe it as like a Himba wallet built into a card box, in that you can use this card box to switch between one card or several cards very, very easily. Now, a lot of people are asking what's the differences between various different boxes that have come before and the Illusionist box, the Parsons box, I think it is. Well, both the Parsons box and the Boombox are based on Boxing Match 1 that came out years ago by Masuda. I can't really speak to the Illusionist box because I haven't got it, but I have spoken to people that have got it. I have also spoken to Andrew Niner himself. And my understanding is, and obviously I know the Boombox really well, a few big advantages over, first of all, it doesn't use magnets at all. There's no magnets involved in the Boombox, right? Nothing, no magnets at all. So it's not going to pull gimmicks out. It's not going to be magnetically locking. However, the big advantage of the Boombox is there is a locking system built into it. So because there's a locking system built into it, you can use it as a regular card box. So you can have a card or several cards set up ready to be switched in. You can have your deck of cards in there. You can open up the Boombox, just use it as a normal card box. Use it, to carry your cards around, do your ambitious card, put them back in the box, and you don't have to use the Boombox at all. However, At any point that you want to, you have access to the card or the cards that you want to switch in. And they're locked in place. The locking system is really genius in the boombox, which means when you take the cards out, you can show the card box empty, you can shake it upside down, nothing's going to come out. But it's ready to do the switch anytime that you want to. And every time I do the switch, I use it as just by putting the box down to one side, doing something else, and then going back to the box. But I know Eric Tate does more visual switches, totally up to you. But the whole point is, it's locked. Then when you do the switch, the thing that's been switched out is locked in place as well. But even though it's locked automatically, unlike a magnet where you kind of can't reset it instantly, just by literally picking it up, it's unlocked. Or in the action of picking it up, you can unlock it, which means that you can steal cards out of it if you want to. And it's that system that allows me to do stuff like, I've got a signed card to box that doesn't use any palming on the project. So it's a signed card to box. They pick a card, they sign a card, they lose it into the deck. The box is empty. When they open it, the signed card's in there and there's no palming. And that uses that locking feature. It also means that it's an instant reset. So you can reset all of the routines I do. The reset is pretty much instant. And you can switch back and forth as much as you want to. So because it locks and because you can switch from one side to the other, you know the magnetic boxes, you couldn't immediately switch back again. You can with this. So you can switch back, switch back. It's really nice. Now, I don't think that the Illusionist model has that locking feature, and to be honest, it's the locking feature that really makes the boombox special. But yeah, you can keep a deck of cards in there. You're good to go into the switch whenever you want to. That's what's beautiful about it. And the routines I put in there is great. I put any card at any number on there, which is killer. You know, you could release this as a standalone product. If you had the ad copy, if you put this as a standalone copy, the ad copy would be a deck of cards is shuffled by the spectator. They freely pick any card. They freely pick any number. They can even change their mind right up until the very last second. They deal down themselves to the position, and that card's there. Like, it's very, very clean. There's also this thing called doodle duplication, where somebody takes a business card, doodles on it without even looking, and then you duplicate it. There's so much really good stuff on there. I'm very proud of the routines that went on there. And I can't understand why people wouldn't use a boombox, because the deck goes in there, fantastic. If you want to use it, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But if you do use it, you've got access to this incredible switch. And there's lots of different ways you can do it. So that's a very long way of answering your question, Davis, which is it won't affect the secret gimmick because no magnets are being used. The locking system uses something else other than magnets. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so the next question is from MC Gamesmaster 90. And he says, my question for you this week is a one-off special, maybe on a Talk Magic or your podcast with Lloyd. Have you ever thought about having one of your staff join the discussion / interview? The reason I ask is because we got to hear you and several other magicians talk about why magic is amazing. I'd love to see someone who knows about magic but isn't a magician share their thoughts on why magic's important to them. Maybe Matt or Jack. Thanks for reading this. Sorry if that dragged on. Yeah, I mean, I've got multiple. I mean, there's lots of staff that I've got. You know, you see Matt a lot because, you know, like, just Matt loves magic. And so when I'm in the office and I go, who wants to see a trick? It's normally Matt that'll jump in and go, yeah. Jack works in the marketing department along with Luke and a whole bunch of other people. So because of that, he's filming a lot of the stuff. So you'll hear Jack behind the camera an awful lot. But yeah, I mean, they are in an interesting position because obviously they know all about magic. Their job, the sales department, is to ring people up and sell them on having magicians at their event, or selling them having illusion shows at their event, or sell them on having, close-up magic or a kids show or something like that. So because of that, they know how to sell magic. They know all the features and benefits of a magician. They might not know how all of the tricks are done, but they know why magic's important, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be able to sell the packages that we have to our customers. Same with the marketing department. The marketing department, they know, a lot of the blogs that get put out by Non-Stop Kids and Slightly Unusual are written by the marketing department, not by me. So they understand magic, they understand entertainment, because they have to market it, right? The admin department, not so much, because obviously they're dealing with the day-to-day side of things, like the phone calls and the customer care and the customer experience and the customer journey and so on and so forth. But it's very interesting. I mean, I'd only do it if people would be interested in seeing an interview like that. If you are, let me know. I can maybe get all of the staff on and ask them some questions. If you think it's the same thing with anything on this channel. If you think it's valuable and you think that it's something that you would like to watch, then I will do it. If it's something that you don't want to watch, I wouldn't do it. Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, so the next question is Nico. And Nico says, hi Craig, pretty simple question here. How do you come up with names for routines? I'm currently working on some stuff to publish, but finding good names was probably the hardest part, lol. I know what you're talking about, Nico. I really struggle with naming my tricks. In fact, there's a standing joke. Whenever I do a multi-trick project, like this happened most recently with Forecast, which I filmed very recently. I went to the shoot with the 1914 to do Forecast. And, there's like 10 routines on Forecast, right? 9 routines plus a bonus, so 10 altogether. And D and his team were like, right, okay, so what's the first trick? And I'm like, it's an any card, any number with numbers written on the faces of the cards. Okay, and what's the next one? Oh, it's this. And what's the next one? It's this. My names are literally the descriptions of tricks. So with a lot of the projects, what tends to happen is, and you'll notice this if you watch one of my tutorials, I won't actually say the name of the trick. I'll say something like, right, next up, we got a really cool any card at any number. Let me tell you how to set this up. I don't actually reference the name of the trick, and the reason is whoever I'm working with will name the tricks afterwards. That happens quite a lot. I'm terrible with naming tricks. I have done it sometimes, but I've created a lot of magic over the years, and I just run out of names for tricks. Like, the thing I'm probably the most proud of naming is KeyMaster, and that came about because I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan, so when I was messing around with keys, it made sense to say KeyMaster, and that's why the bonus routine was Gatekeeper. That's the reason, because of Ghostbusters. So I've been clever in the past, but a lot of the time these days, whatever production company I'm working for, I'll say, look, I've done my creative bit, I've come up with the tricks, you name the tricks. But if I had to give you any advice on it, I'd say just look at what the trick is based on, because obviously every trick has inspiration, right? Every trick, you're inspired from somewhere else. And then see if you can kind of take the trick that it's based on. And so you see, sometimes you'll see, blah, 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 extreme. Perfect example is when, what's his name? Daryl, the late great Daryl, brought out his rope around the deck for the finale to an ambitious card. He called it Ultimate Ambition. Using that word ultimate before the word ambition kind of showed what it was. Another perfect example is Peter Nardi, when he brought out his extractor deck. I mean, is there a better name for the trick when you actually know how the trick works? Extractor. That's exactly what the deck is. That's what it does. It extracts the card out of the deck. They also named Gossip, and I thought Gossip was a great name for a trick because it was all about celebrities and it was about Gossip magazine, so celebrities absolutely made sense. It's not the most important part of the process, in my opinion. The most important part of the process is nailing the trick, making sure it's good, making sure it's commercial, making sure you've worked it in the real world. What's not important is the name of the trick, which is why I probably leave that till last and end up with somebody else doing it. But yeah, I mean, that's some advice. But if you're working with a production company, get them to do it. If you've got friends, ask them. They'll probably find it a lot easier than you will. Okay, so the next question is from Michael Pilkey, and Michael says, I've just got KeyMaster and I love it. Thank you very much. I know you use keys uncut, but I noticed the key with the hole in the stem seems to be made in a way that if you cut it, it could ruin the hole. Any advice on this? Also, if you have the original KeyMaster, I'd love to see a comparison in them to see how far the gimmicks have come. Yeah, I could probably do a comparison. The thing with KeyMaster, okay, so I do, and I've talked about this ad infinitum on this channel and various other different places. I use the keys uncut because for me, when I'm performing, it's a great hook because nobody ever notices that the keys are uncut, right? They never notice. So I take the keys off and I say, hey, let me show you something with a couple of keys. Can you hold on to that one for me? Brilliant. This one right here, check it out. Does it see anything? Do you see anything weird about that? Did you notice the keys are uncut? No, you didn't, you see, because even though you were looking and I told you to see if there was anything weird on there, you didn't notice it. Because a lot of the time, the secret hides in plain sight. And that's what magic's all about. It's all about hiding in plain sight. Now, that sounds ridiculous, but let me explain exactly what I mean. And that's my hook into the routine. So I love using uncut keys because nobody ever notices it. Now, if you look at the new KeyMaster, the hole has been cut slightly off center on the stem, and it's being cut lower down the stem. And that's because most keys, that most house keys, you'll find you won't have a problem with where the hole is positioned. If you take it to a key cutter and you take your house key to a key cutter and you say, look, can I cut this into this? They'll tell you if it's possible or not. They'll know straight away. I'd say probably 85% of keys won't have that issue because of how it's been cut off center and where it's been positioned, as opposed to in the middle, like the original, it's been lower down to the stem. So you shouldn't have too much of a problem. However, if you have, there are lots of keys that you can, if you really want cut keys, it's not a problem, because what you can do is you can go to a key cutter and say, look, I'm a magician, I've got this magic trick, I need all 3 or 4 of these keys cut to the same pattern, and I don't want it to interfere with that hole. And they'll very easily be able to go, okay, this key will work, and they'll just cut it for you. And they probably won't charge you anything because you're using your own keys, or if they do, it'll be a couple of bucks or a couple of quid, right? But most people shouldn't have a problem with it. That's why it was positioned in the place it was positioned in. In terms of the original KeyMaster, and the difference between the original KeyMaster and the new KeyMaster in terms of the gimmicks, the original KeyMaster, I had an absolute nightmare having those keys made up. So when I came up with the idea for the routine, I contacted various different key companies and I said, this is what I want. I want a key. And it wasn't a problem getting 2 holes in the key. It wasn't a problem getting a hole on the stem. The problem was having a key with no hole in the head. Because when key cutters, and we're going back obviously about 12 or 13 years ago, I don't know if it's changed now, but back in the day, key cutters bought in keys that were already holed and everything, right? So I was going to key cutters and saying, can I have a blank key with no hole? And they were like, no, because we buy them in with the hole in. So everybody was saying the same. We need to go to blah, blah, blah company who supplies the keys. So I contacted this company and I was like, could I have the keys, please? And they were like, well, yeah, but you have to order like 40,000 of them or something like this. And I'm like, well, that's just going to be too cost prohibitive. That's never going to work. So eventually I found a key company, and what they did, and if you've got the original KeyMaster, you'll see this, they actually took a real key and they filled the hole in. They filled the hole in. So they took a key with the hole already there, they filled it in and then brassed it back over again. And if you look carefully, you can actually tell that there used to be a hole there if you know what you're looking for. But that's the process we had to go through in order to get the keys to work, because that's the only way we could get the keys to work. And it was really frustrating, but that's where it was. Now with the new KeyMaster, there's a few advantages. So first of all, that's not the case. The keys have been custom made for this trick, blank. So we can put the hole wherever we want to, which is great. So we put the hole on the stem at the bottom, that, you know, we can bodge the holes in wherever we want. We've made the holes a little bit smaller. I think the biggest improvement compared to the original KeyMaster is the keys have been shortened a bit. The original KeyMaster, a lot of the problems that people had with it is the keys were too big. Now, I've got very big hands. That wasn't an issue for me. But a lot of people were saying, oh, this is a problem. The keys are too big. I can't palm them. I can't do the moves properly. So the first thing that I said to Penguin is we need to shorten the keys. We need to make the keys shorter a little bit. And those smaller keys make the world of difference. And the keys, I think, look more like real keys. They're designed so that wherever you are in the world, it looks like a key that you would have in that country. So yeah, that answers your questions, hopefully, Michael. But if you've got any other questions about KeyMaster, please let me know. Okay, so the next question is from Vladimir's Weiss. And Vladimir's Weiss says, excellent Q&A, thank you very much. Question is, how many tricks do you usually carry on you for a walk-around table hopping set? It really just depends, man. It really just depends. I take it on a gig-by-gig basis. I did a video a little while ago of what's in Craig's close-up case. That's completely changed now, so I might just do another one, what's in Craig's close-up case 2022. But it very much depends. When I get to a gig, I kind of look at the environment I'm in. I look at where I'm performing, I open up my case and I take out the stuff that I think will work in that environment. And, you know, if I'm performing outside and it's hot weather, I won't wear a jacket, and instead I'll probably wear an open shirt. And that will also dictate what I'm carrying, because if I haven't got a suit jacket, I'm going to bring things right down, because I've only got, in essence, 2 or 3 pockets at that point to work from. So it very much depends, if that makes sense. It very much depends on a gig-by-gig basis. But I'll try to make sure that I've got stuff on me without overloading my pockets. What I don't want to do is walk up to the table with every single pocket bulging, which I think is it's a mistake that a lot of people make when they first get into Magic. Their attitude is, I need to carry everything with me, so I've got every single situation covered. I tend not to do that, to be perfectly honest. I tend to kind of go down the route of less is more, because if I've got 4 coins and a shell on me, I've probably got about 20 or 30 routines that I can do. If I've got, like a deck of cards with me, I've got 40 or 50 routines I can do. So I've got a bunch of stuff I can do. Sometimes I've gone out and done routines. I've gone out and done 2-hour gigs with just a deck of cards in my pocket and a Sharpie, and that's it, and I'm good to go. Other times I've carried a lot more things, right? So how much do I normally carry with me? It very much depends. It really does. I can't really say. Just don't overload your pockets is my advice. Don't put so much in your pockets that when you're looking for something you can't find it. And look for stuff that packs small and plays big. Chop Cup is fantastic. And if you've got like maybe 40 tables and you've got 2 hours and you've only got time to do 1 trick on each table or 2 tricks on each table, maybe you can do Chop Cup, because you're going to have a lot of pocket space taken up with Chop Cup. You're going to have a Chop Cup in one pocket, you're going to have final loads in another pocket. That takes up 2 pockets straight away, which you could use for other stuff, right? So just very much depends, really. How many tricks do I carry with me? Probably 10 or 12 or something like that, maybe. But it very much depends. I can't really answer the question. So the next question from Vladimir Weiss is, what's my favourite trick using multiple outs? Well, I've got a couple at the moment. So there's 3 that I like doing. One that I haven't done for a couple of months, but I would happily put it into my set again. Things kind of go in and out of my set as I'm working on new material. But there's one thing, the Alakazam trick, which is all about cinema. There's a 6-way, I can't remember what it is. I cannot remember. Maybe you can let me know in the comments, but there's a multiple out trick from Alakazam that has cards, and it's all about cinema, and that's absolutely amazing. I love carrying around that with me. Symbiotic it's based on Symbiotic. I think Symbiotic was the first version where you have lots of symbols and you were able to predict which symbol they picked, but then they brought out a cinema version, I believe. Possibly. Another thing that I like doing is Safe by Chris Congreve, which does use multiple outs, but in a very different way. I tend to use Safe when I'm doing big tables, right? It's a fantastic big table trick. It's not something that I do Walkaround, really, to be honest, but for a big table trick, it works really well. I've recently just started doing Decision Point by David Regal. I reviewed this with Ryland recently on the review show. Decision Point is great because there are so many options that they feel that they can have, and you're able to tell them exactly what it is that they're doing. But again, you need a table for that, so it's not something that you can do walk around really, but if you've got a table, it's fantastic. My favorite routine that uses multiple outs, and I'm sorry to bring up my own trick, I really am, but is Gossip, which I put out through Alakazam a while ago now. I love Gossip because I love the baby gag. The baby gag is one of my favorite routines to perform on stage, and I always wanted to do baby gag close-up, and this allows me to do baby gag close-up in a really convincing way, and it's no table required. I can get 2 people involved in it with me, which is great because it brings a couple of people in, and it feels absolutely impossible. So I love Gossip in a walk-around situation, no table required, instant reset. There's a lot to love about Gossip. Yeah, I think those are the 4 that I tend to play around with. There's something else that I'm working on, which I don't want to talk about right now, but I've been developing a multiple out style trick for the last year, and it's finally getting to a point where I feel like I'm happy with it. And it's took me a while to get to that point, and I'm sure you guys will see it at some point. It's probably going to go into the Netrix, but it's really fun. It takes multiple outs in a completely different direction, so there's that as well. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Okay, so the next question is BE the Magician, and BE the Magician's question is, what's the best sponge ball routine to learn? I know a lot of magicians don't use sponge balls, but I think they're great. Do you have any recommendations? Yeah, I mean, for me, the Pat Page routine is the best. Ryland did it on his Instagram channel a little bit ago. For me, if you're going to do sponge balls, it's got everything. You know, the Pat Page routine is fantastic. I love that. I remember first learning it and going, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing ever. So yeah, and if you don't know that routine, it starts off with one sponge ball, then you get two, then you do one over here transposition, then there's the 10 count thing, then it happens in their hand, and then you've got a 2 in the hand, 1 in the pocket thing, and it finishes with everything vanishing. Beautiful routine. Absolutely amazing routine. If you want to go in a different direction with sponge balls, my routine sponge, which I'm very, very fond of. I am biased, obviously, but sponge is a great trick. You can learn sponge from my Penguin Live lecture, and that's a transposition between a coin and a sponge ball. So you have a coin and you have a sponge ball, and they change places, which is really cool because the sponge ball is a completely different object to a coin. You know, one's metal and flat and hard, one's soft and squidgy and red, and you know, and then they still change places, and then at the end they turn into a you know, they combine together into a metal ball. I really love that routine. It's a great routine. It's a great way to transition from sponge ball magic to coin magic, or vice versa. So sponge is really good. A great routine for stage work is the never-ending sponge balls, which is a balls and mouth style routine, great for kid shows, which got bought out a little while ago. I want to say Eric Leclerc, I think. That's a really cool routine, works really, really well. If you go and look up on YouTube how to run an awesome kids show, which is a video I put up about a year ago, I put in there my sponge ball routine that I use when I do a kids show, which is a very simple premise of, I've got this red ball, I'm going to make it turn green. And it's that 7-minute routine, and everything goes wrong during the course of it, and eventually it turns green, and you just need 3 sponge balls for that, and it takes up like 7 or 8 minutes, and it's a powerhouse of a routine. For a kid show, it's absolutely brilliant. It's designed for a kid show. It's designed for sort of stage as opposed to close-up, but you could adapt it for close-up for sure. I'm trying to think of any other sponge balls routines that I really like. That's about it, really, to be honest. Bizarro has the really nice color changing sponge balls, and there's a lot you can do with those. They basically turn inside out, and there's an awful lot you can do with those sponge balls. So those are really nice as well. Yeah, I think somebody out there needs to come up with a really unique sponge balls trick that just deviates from what everyone else is doing. I think that would be like a big hot project, because everybody loves sponge balls. And if you can come up with something a little bit different to what everyone else is doing, I think everybody would love that. So the next question is from Sting, and Sting says, thanks for answering my question last week. Don't worry. Today I'd like to ask when we can expect the next review show revisited. It's been a long time since the last one, and I really like that show. Yeah, soon, man. I've had to put it on hold. I've had to put my entire life on hold this last month, to be honest, because at the beginning of May, I was, prepping to go to Magic Live, and I had to go to Columbus, and then I had to go to Magic Live, and that was a whole like 10 or 11 day thing. And then I came back and I went straight to London with Ryland, and we were doing the whole BGT thing, which took up all of my time. So May has been a bit of a write-off, and even the month before I had, which is so we had February, March, April, May. That's right. February was crazy because I had Blackpool, and then I was in America for 2 weeks filming the Penguin. March was absolutely manic for a variety of different every week. And what I need to do in order to do the review show revisited is I need to go out to a place, not a gig really, it's difficult to do it at a gig. I need to go out to a place where I can spend 2 or 3 hours performing new material, because some of it might not work. The whole point with Review Show Revisited is taking tricks that I don't think are great a lot of the time and seeing if they're playing the real world. And I don't want to go to a gig and do something that sucks. Right, so I have to go to somewhere. Now, I've got a friend who owns a restaurant that I film a lot of my stuff in, but it's finding the time to do that, because Ryland's going to have to go with me as well. He's going to have his stuff. I'm going to have my stuff. And it's this last month and a half, 2 months have just been put on hold for BGT purposes. We're obviously at the end of that journey now, which is amazing. So things will be going back to normal. So expect a review show revisited in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And normally when we film them, we batch a bunch of performances, so then we can drip those out over the coming weeks and months. Okay, so the next question is from Benoit P. And Benoit says, hello Craig, hey Benoit. Looking back at your previous releases from decades ago, you have 2 projects. I'd like to know if you will be re-releasing them with the props Blank, which is the card, which is the project with blank cards, and Attack of the Bag. Thank you. So, Attack of the Bag is something that people ask me all of the time. Are you going to re-release Attack of the Bag? Are you going to re-release Attack of the Bag? And the answer is maybe. I'm currently just trying to redesign the bag. Because the one problem that I had with Attack of the Bag, it's not really a major issue, but it's something that a few people said to me, is the bag doesn't look like anything. It kind of looks like a magician-y prop. Now, I don't have too much of a problem with that because I am a magician. I'm going to a gig. If it's okay to use like metal cups and big metal rings, why would it not be okay to bring this bag out? But it would be nice if it was made to be more organic. So I'm currently trying to prototype a version of the Attack of the Bag built out of a nice leather wallet. That's the goal. So, and if I can do that and I can make it so that it works the same as the gimmick with Attack of the Bag, then that's something that I'd absolutely want to look into bringing back out, because then what you have is the Attack of the Bag, which had tons of routines with it, and it made coin magic so much more accessible, but it's built into a more organic prop. So I'm going through that process at the moment, and like I said earlier in the Q&A, that process can take a while. So, you know, bear with me on that one. In terms of Blank, yes, definitely, that will be coming out again. I have just shot, well, I say just, it was in April. I shot in April, was it April? Who cares? I think it was April. I shot in April 3 projects. One on blank cards, which was based on the blank project I brought out. One on double faces and one on double backs. And it's with a company that I've never actually done anything with before. And I was super excited about working with them. I don't even want to say who the company is right now, but you guys would know the company. So that is shot, live performance, 40 routines between those 3 projects. 40 routines, live performances of absolutely everything. Some incredible killer stuff that I've been using for like the last decade. Some of it's based on what was on blank originally, but new routines, new handlings, new concepts, absolutely everything. So yeah, that's going to be, that's shot, that's done. So I know the edit needs to be done on it, which will probably take a few weeks, maybe even months, but look out for that. Blank is coming back out at some point soon. Okay, so next question is from Tor Ravengal, and Tor says, could you share a moment in which you have invented a trick or invented an ending to a trick completely on the fly because there was a happy accident or coincidence that you could take advantage of? Well, yeah, I mean, I spoke about this on a 5x5 a little while ago, probably about 6 months ago. I went to a gig a while ago, and they pulled me to one side and they said, hey, we're pregnant and we want to announce it to everybody and we're hoping you can do it in a very magical way. And I was like, really, that's a lot of pressure to put on me, you know, I don't want it to come across cheesy. And they were like, no, we trust you, we want you to come up with something. So I went to one side and I came up with this whole parlor presentation. I got people up on stage and I quickly put together a digital force bag thing where I was like, okay, right, you, you know, pick a life event, you pick a, you know, all of this different stuff. And it worked, and the prediction was in the envelope, and it was a picture of the scan of the baby and all of that. And you can go back and look at that on the 5x5 a little while ago. That was an example of coming up with a whole trick on the fly because they asked for something very specific, and they were very insistent that I do it. So that's something. I invented a trick or an ending. I invented a trick or an ending to a trick on the fly because there was a happy accident or coincidence. Well, that sort of stuff can happen all of the time. Like, it's about being observational when you're performing. It's about being aware of your surroundings. So there's many times when I just noticed that, you know, somebody stood up for a second and I've palmed a card and put it on their seat. So as they sit down, they're sitting on the card. Or I've slipped a card into somebody's pocket because they're looking in completely a different direction. You know, taking advantage of an environment like that is something that can happen all of the time. Yeah, there's lots of times where I've got a deck set up in mnemonica, for example, and somebody's named the 4 of clubs, and I can just put the deck down and go, really, the 4 of clubs, because I had one card in my pocket, and this is the 4. You know, that sort of thing. But there's no such thing as a happy accident. You create your own luck when you're performing close-up magic, and it's about not being too scripted, So you can take advantage of these happy accidents, or you can take advantage of what's happening around you, if that kind of makes sense. Be aware of what's happening around you, and then if you're not too scripted, you can take advantage of them. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of times where things happen like that. But in terms of an entire trick, I think the best example is when I was asked to, make the announcement of a couple being pregnant, so to speak. But yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice I can give you is just don't be too scripted, and just be aware of your surroundings, and you'll find that there will be things happening all of the time that you can take advantage of. Okay, so the next question was from Mick, and Mick says, "Hi Craig, I recently purchased Stand Up Monte by Garrett Thomas. What a pleasure it has been to learn. Can you recommend anything of the same ilk?" Well, I'm telling you right now that at some point soon, Garrett is bringing out another version of Stand Up Monte, right? But he's not. He's bringing out another Monte routine. It's not going to be Stand Up Monte. It's based on a well-known Monte routine, but he's Garretted it, for want of a better word. And what I mean by that is he's taken that routine, that Monte routine, and he's just flipped it on its head in terms of what you can and can't do with it. And he gave me a sneak peek at Magic Live, and it's absolutely brilliant. So look out for a new product coming out soon from Garrett, all to do with Monte. It's not Stand-Up Monte, it's something else, but that's an example. In terms of anything of the same ilk, so another stand-up Monte routine, another Monte routine that's done stand-up that I really like is Corner of Piccadilly by Paul Gordon. There's videos of me doing that on this channel. Corner of Piccadilly is great. It's a fantastic routine. It's, in my opinion, one of Paul's best releases. And like Stand-Up Monte, it just fits in your top pocket. So you either do Stand-Up Monte or you do this. And I tend to alternate. I love Stand-Up Monte, but I also love Corner of Piccadilly. And I alternate between the both of them depending on how I feel, to be perfectly honest. But both of them are really good. And if you enjoyed practicing Stand-Up Monte, there's a very good chance that you'll enjoy practicing Corner of Piccadilly as well. So that's really good. Can I recommend anything else at the same ilk? Is there anything else that I can recommend that's fun to learn? Very good question. Completely different, really, in terms of effect. But if you enjoy learning Stand-Up Monte and the moves behind the Stand-Up Monte, I would look into Picturesque by David Regal and John Gustafaro, which is their version of McDonald's Aces, right? And they contribute a whole bunch of different stuff, and they take the McDonald's Aces plot and it turns on its head, right? There's a lot of different stuff you can do there. Now, obviously, you need a table, so it's not a Stand-Up Monte style trick, but I really enjoyed learning that project because, you know, the McDonald's Aces have been done the same way for years and years and years, and I've got my own personal handling of McDonald's Aces, which at some point might see the light of day. But what the guys did, what John and David did, is they applied more moves and more concepts and totally different ideas to the McDonald's Aces plot. And it was really fun to learn those tricks. It really was. It was like a joy to learn them. To be honest, anything by John Gustafaro. If you haven't seen John's work, go and check out stuff that John does. He's absolutely incredible. And his stuff is actually really fun to perform and really fun to learn. And it's super commercial as well. So yeah, go check out some of that. So the next question is from Adrian Suter. And Adrian says, what behind the scene influence does Sarah and Thea have on your magic? The Petty family seem to mirror the magic community very well. Performers are primarily males. Don't get me wrong. I know there's some great female magicians, but they are rare. Yeah, you know what? That's just the way it is. Sarah's not a magician. She's not a performer. She doesn't. The reason you won't see her on camera, she doesn't like being on camera. She doesn't like being the center of attention ever. However, you'll struggle to find somebody as knowledgeable as Sarah when it comes to magic. And the reason is, you've got to remember, she's the managing director of Slightly Unusual. She's the managing director of Non-Stop Kids. She has seen, like, she goes to Blackpool every single year. She took a bit of a break for a few years like I did, but she goes to Blackpool almost every single year. She's seen lectures from some of the best magicians in the world. She's gone to so many different conventions. She's seen so many people perform. She's seen me perform for decades. She knows more magic and has seen more magic than most people, and she knows all the principles. It's almost impossible to fool Sarah because she knows absolutely everything. She may not be a performer, but she's got a very strong theoretical knowledge of magic, and quite a creative mind as well. So I'll show her a trick that I'm working on. I'll say, what do you think of that? And she'll say, oh, have you tried doing this? Or have you tried doing that? Or you flash from this angle, you need to do... She's a very useful person to show magic to, because although she's a lay person in terms of performing, she's, as I say, she's very knowledgeable when it comes to magical techniques. More knowledgeable than most magicians, I would say. Thea, on the other hand, she's also knows a lot about magic. She can spot a full strands furled a mile off. She knows a lot of the principles behind magic, because she's just seen Ryland do it since she was born. She's seen me do it since she was born. But she doesn't really have an interest in performing magic. She really enjoys watching it, and she's very proud of her brother. But she doesn't really like performing magic, and that's fair enough. That's her thing. She doesn't like performing. And she doesn't really want to learn how to do magic either. She loves watching it, but it's not something she wants to learn. She's more into dance. In terms of what influence Sarah and Thea have on the magic, well, Thea is Ryland's sounding board. When Ryland's coming up with a new trick or learning a new trick, he'll show Thea, and Thea will give him his honest opinion. He knows if he can fool Thea, he's onto something. He can then try and fool his mom, which almost never happens. In terms of the influence Sarah has on the magic, well, huge influence, because she runs the companies, right? She runs the company. So if I want to buy a new illusion, I have to go through Sarah and say, hey, Sarah, can I buy this new illusion, please? So she's a huge influence on the magic, and she'll be a huge influence on the way that, magic TV wouldn't exist without Sarah. So big influence, absolutely huge influence. But yeah, we are a big magic family in one way or another, but it's only me and Ryland that perform. Okay, so the next question is, can you think of any great... this is from Davis West again, by the way. Can you think of any great mentalism routines that require just a single billet and a Sharpie? I always carry around a few blank playing cards in my shadow wallet, and I'm wondering if you know of any routines that require just a billet that's more than just putting the card in the wallet and reading the spectator's mind. If not, could you point me in the right direction of other presentations using a peak in a peak wallet? You're kind of speaking to the wrong person when it comes to mentalism and billets. The person you need to speak to is Alexander Marsh, and I know that, or depending on which name he's going by today, but he's amazing when it comes to when it comes to that sort of thing. He's absolutely amazing. He's got so much awesome stuff on billet work, and I know that he's bringing out a project at some point with the 1914 on billet work, so it might be something that you want to keep an eye on the 1914 socials on, because that is coming soon. In terms of presentations for using a peak with a peak wallet, again, I'm going to refer you to the 1914. I'm going to refer you to the Revelations project by Louis Lavelle, which is a download you can get from the 1914. And the Revelations project was all about, so you've done a peak, how do you reveal it? Because everybody reveals this peaked information in a particular way, but how can you turn this on its head, and how can you reveal this information in a completely different way, right? So that for me is absolutely, I remember watching that and thinking that's just brilliant. There's so much really good advice on there. So I'm not the person to answer your question really, but the person who is able to answer your question is Louis Lavelle, and luckily he's done a project on it. I would check out Revelations, which I think is only available for 1914, and it's by Louis Lavelle, and it's a download so you can access it immediately. Okay, so the next question is from Illusionists Ed Zeus, and he says, I have a question. Can you make my wife disappear? Okay, actually, my question is, how do you respond to all the famous lines that lay people say? I get them very often. Everyone is hiding their wallets, watches, asks me to make money, asks me to make the bill disappear, etc., etc. Thanks. Really, that's a great question, by the way. Really, that's down to your individual personality. It's down to you as a person, as a performer, how you're going to kind of approach that sort of stuff. And what I mean by that is, you could just go and pretend that that's the first time you've heard it and just laugh. You know, if you're a really likable, nice style of performer that just everybody loves, you might just want to go, can you make my wife disappear? That's a good one. You know, you might want to go down that route, or you might just want to have a stock line that you say to them so you might want to think, and again, this is about being prepared, right? So I've talked about being prepared when it comes to magic tricks, and always making sure you know the out, so if the trick goes wrong, then you fix it. You want to be prepared with a lot of the stuff that you know spectators are going to throw at you. So, for example, write down the stuff you get asked all the time. The questions you get asked all the time, write them down. How do I make my wife disappear? You know, can you make my wife disappear? You know, and then think about stuff that you can say that's going to feel off the cuff, but in reality is pre-prepared. You know, it'll make you come across as a funnier, more wittier person. So, can you make my wife disappear? One of my stock lines is, yeah, 10 grand and a shovel, and I'll make it happen. You know, and just say it very deadpan. Just look at them and just go, yeah, 10 grand and a shovel, and I can make it happen. Now that works for me as a character. The other thing is these lines have to work with you as a character. My character is very sarcastic, so you know that works for me. Can you make my wife disappear? Yeah, 10 grand and a shovel, I'll make it happen. Stuff like that, right? I've heard, and I wouldn't go this far, but I've heard people go, "Can you make my wife disappear?" Yeah, don't worry. You know, don't worry. By the look of you, that's going to happen sooner rather than later. You know, now I wouldn't go down that line. That wouldn't work for me as a character. But I know that there's certain performers that would say that, and it would work for them, right? So you have to know what works for you and what doesn't work for you as a performer from your performing character point of view. But then make a list of all of the different ways that you can respond to it, and make a list of all of the you know, the stuff like. Can you give me the lottery numbers? One of my stock lines for that is 18, 36, 27, 10, 9, 14, and 53. There you go. That's the answer. Did you write those down? That's the answer. That's what you wanted, right? Yeah, just stuff like that. Now, so that's one way of doing it. Write down all of the ways that people are all of the questions that people are gonna say, and write down how you think that you could deal with it, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is write down all of the questions that people ask you, all the jokes that people are gonna say, and then figure out how you can actually go from that into a trick. So I've got a trick that's coming out with the 1914 at some point, which is a lottery prediction. And it's a lottery prediction that just sits inside your wallet. So it's an everyday carry thing, and it's a lottery prediction, and it's killer. So one question I get a lot is, oh, can you tell me the lottery numbers? I can use that to transition into a trick. Well, yeah, I can. Would you like me to show you how? Let me show you how. Or, you know, you might want to go, can you make my wife disappear? Now I'm just coming up with this off the top of my head, but for example, if you had friction pen, you could take a business card and go, yeah, okay, do me a favor, take this pen, draw a picture of your wife. Fantastic. And what we'll do, and then put the pen away, switch it for a G2, and say, look, let's just write wife there. And then you can use a lighter and you can make the wife disappear. There you go, job done. Now here's the thing, you take this home, when you wake up in the morning, your wife will be really gone. You're welcome. You could do the same thing with an out to lunch principle, and just have an out to lunch thing set up with a picture of a wife. You know, pretend to draw, you know, a picture of a woman, and then just take the card, put it in their hand, concentrate, and she's disappeared off the signed card. There's a load of different ways that you can actually take something that someone said and use it to transition into a trick, which is great because now the magic that you're actually performing for them is based on what they're saying. It becomes even more interactive, right? And then the other way of dealing with it is just to be completely sarcastic with it. You know, I've seen magicians who carry a clicker around with them, and you know, like a counter. So every time you press the button, it adds one onto the counter. So when somebody says, "Can you make my wife disappear?" they go, "That's very funny." And I've seen less subtle versions of that. So I've seen magicians carry around a notepad, and at the top of each page on the notepad, they've got all the questions that are asked. Can you make my wife disappear? Can you make the bill disappear? All this different stuff. And when somebody goes, "God, can you make my wife disappear?" It's like, it's very funny. And he opens up the notepad and they see, "Can you make my wife disappear?" And there's a big tally chart underneath. Takes out a pen and goes, there we go. Anyway, where were we? And just don't reference it, right? So again, that works if you are the sort of performer that can get away with that. So that's a very long answer to a very simple question, but really either have pre-scripted jokes that you can use in every scenario, or think about how you can actually transition from what they're saying into a different trick to make it more interactive. The next question is from Divshan Rao, and Divshan says, how do you deal with people calling you out on a double lift? Well, I've never really had that, to be honest, Divshan. It just doesn't really happen. It just doesn't really happen because the way that I perform, the emphasis isn't on the moves. The emphasis is on the whole experience for the person that you're performing for, right? So I've never really had it. You know, it's. I remember being with James Brown a little while ago, and somebody was asking him to show him the pass, and he did the pass, and they were like, "Oh, I wasn't ready. I wasn't looking." And he said, "That's the point. You know, the best time to do any moves in magic is when people aren't looking. You know, if people are calling you out on a move, maybe it's because you need to work more on your misdirection, you need to work more on your audience management, and you need to work more on when you do the moves as opposed to the moves themselves, right? But, you know, if you're constantly getting called out on a double lift over and over again to the point that people are actually saying to you, hey, you've just turned over 2 cards, then either don't use a double lift, work on your technique a little more, or come up with a way of doing it that doesn't use a double lift. Use a top change, use a pass, use something like that. I don't know, it depends on the individual routine. But, you know, if you're getting the same thing over and over again, my advice is to look at it and just kind of see what you can do to tweak it to make it look better. But also, when you're performing, don't make it confrontational. If you're making it confrontational, then what's going to happen is people are going to want to call you out on stuff. Make it more fun, make it more engaging, make it more enjoyable for everybody, and then you shouldn't have that. The next question is from Oliver Venacor. Will you and Ryland be at the session? Yes, we will, along with Thea and Sarah. The whole family is coming along. But yes, me and Ryland are going to be at the session. Okay, so the next question is from the Kitchen Magician. And the Kitchen Magician says, love your content, Craig. Keep it up. Thank you. What advice would you have for, say, children who are basically little mini hecklers? How can we deal with a child who is truly hindering the show for myself and everybody watching? Coming up behind the table, shouting about how everything's done and talking over everyone. The parents were nowhere to be seen. The parents were nowhere. Oh, hang on. The parents were nowhere. Here we go. Were nowhere to be found. And honestly, this little girl made my last birthday show a nightmare. I asked her to politely sit down and enjoy the show. She would not. The only thing I could do was involving her in everything, but still she made it very difficult. As a parent myself, this was frustrating. She was the oldest child at the party. This child knew better and was so disrespectful towards me. None of the other parents stepped in to help. It was honestly getting to be a huge concern. Am I overreacting? How can I get these children to comply or listen? They refuse to maybe go and play somewhere else. They need to be the center of attention at all times. The last birthday show I'd done a few. It was the worst birthday show ever. The child was troubled and rude. What would you do in that situation? I even debated stopping the show, but I don't want to be an asshole, but it was out of control. I want to add, this girl said at the beginning, right when I showed up, she said to me, I'm going to stand behind this table the entire time and watch you and tell everyone how you do your tricks. I'm not going anywhere. And she stood there and asked politely to sit down if she wants to enjoy the show like the rest of the children. She would not, after asking her to sit many times. She did for a little bit. She would then, even before I did anything, shout, I've seen that trick before. Like, no you haven't, you little brat, can you stop? I've had adult hecklers that honestly don't even compare to this little girl. I'd love you to do a video on bratty kids because it was a test in patience. I've never done birthday shows before. I know if I'd never done birthday shows before, I'd have been eaten alive. Right, okay, so good question. Lots to unpick there. And I'll probably do a video on this because there's a lot that we can talk about on this subject. So I'm going to keep it brief because not everybody is into kids magic on the Q&A. So I am going to keep it brief. So first of all, if you're performing at a kids show, you said that this child was older than all the other kids. If there is a child or a couple of children, and you do tend to find that at children's birthday parties, let's say you're doing a 6-year-old's birthday party, so all the kids are going to be 5, 6, 7, maybe 8. You might have a 9-year-old there. You might have like an older sibling and their friend or something, right? That's a couple of years older than the rest of the children. A lot of the time, I know that what I'm going to do in my show isn't necessarily going to pique their interest. They probably don't want to be there. They probably feel that they're older than this and that they shouldn't be at a kid's birthday party, and depending on their personality they might try and ruin it for everybody, right? Okay, now the first thing that I'll do is, if I recognize that when I get to the gig, the first thing that I'll do is I'll go to one side after I've set up before the show starts, and I'll show them something really cool, something like really close up. I'll do coins across or something. I'll say, hey guys, come over here for a minute. Do me a favor. this show is really aimed at the younger kids, right? It's not aimed at you guys. Because you're older, I'd really love you to make sure that everyone's sitting there and enjoying the show. I'm going to show you something just for you guys now. And then afterwards, if you can help me during the show, I'll teach you a trick that you can show all your friends and family. Would that be okay? And then I'll do something that will blow their mind. And what that does is that gets them on side, and then after I've finished everything, I'll take them to one side and I'll teach them something like the jumping rubber band or something really simple, and I'll give them the rubber band and I'll say, hey guys, thank you so much for helping me. Getting them on side right at the very beginning is really important. Now that can stop a lot of that dead, because a lot of the time, if it's an older kid, saying to them, hey, treating them like an adult and saying to them, look, this isn't really for you, it's for them, but I'd really like your help, and then showing them something and then promising them later on that you're going to do something for them, that's a great way to get them on side. So that's the first thing that I would suggest. The second thing is, it's really important when you're doing any type of show. Well, first of all, it's really important to have a warm-up, right? It's really important to have a warm-up. A lot of magicians, they come out and they go straight into their first trick. I have a warm-up, right? And what the warm-up does is it takes the super excited kids that are that are going to go crazy, and it reels them in a little bit, and it takes the shy kids and it brings them out of their shell, right? So the kids that are super excited, that are running around all over the place, yeah, the kids that are going to be disruptive, during the warm-up, I asked the question, who here would like to come up and help me in the show? Put your hand in the air if you'd like to come up and help me. Now, the kids whose hands go straight up, they're the kids that I need to keep an eye on, because they're the kids that are going to want to be the center of attention. They're confident enough to put their hand right up there. The other kids that are kind of half putting their hand up there or not putting their hand up at all, they're probably a little bit shyer. They're not as outgoing. They're the ones I don't have to worry about. The kids that go boom, they're the kids that would normally try and be disruptive during the course of the show. However, a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, they just want to be the center of attention. So if I can make it so that they're the center of attention, then they're likely to be my biggest ally, right? So ask the question at the beginning, who wants to come up and help? And then say to them, well, guys, if you want to come up and help me in the show, you got to stay sat down on your bums facing the front. You got to be really noisy, but when I do this, you got to be really quiet, okay? And you got to stay sat down. If you do that, there's a good chance I'll pick you. So who thinks they can stay sat down and face the front and be noisy and be quiet when I say, put your hand in the air if you can? Brilliant. Now, what we're doing here is we're telling them what we need them to do in order to be a part of the show. And then if they start going off the rails and they start doing something like heckling or being naughty or coming to the front, you can say, well, I thought you wanted to help. Go and sit down. The only way you can come up to the front and help is if you're sitting down and you're being good. Now, that will work, right? Now, if you're doing a 45-minute show, that will work to a point. But it's an example of using the carrot and not the stick. You never want to use the stick, you always want to use the carrot. So give them an incentive, right? Another example is, a lot of my packages that I do, we do balloon modeling as part of the package. Now the kids don't know that they're getting balloons, but they are. So another example is, during the show, if there's some kids that are being disruptive, you can say, who here likes balloon models? Who here would like a balloon model to take away with them? Okay, I tell you what, anybody who helps during this show, I will make them a balloon at the end of the party. Now, you're going to make them a balloon anyway, but they didn't know that. So now I'm saying to them, well, hang on, if you want this balloon, then you have to pay attention. And you have to be really good. And a lot of the time I'll do that like 3/4 of the way into the show when they're maybe starting to lose a little bit of interest, or maybe their attention's deviating a little bit. I'm like, right, okay, who wants a balloon model? I'm going to make a balloon model at the end of this party, but only for the people that help me with this next trick. Put your hand up in the air if you're going to help me. And that's the other thing, make it really interactive. Every 3 or 4 seconds, there should be something that you're saying to the kids that is going to grab their attention. Whether it might be something that makes them laugh, something that makes them smile, it could be something magical, it doesn't matter. But there should be something happening every 3 or 4 seconds that engages the children in one way or another, right? So make sure that that happens. Now, the only other piece of advice I'd give you is make sure that when you're booking these shows in, you have your terms and conditions which are laid out to the client, and they have to reply to say that they understand the terms and conditions. And one of the terms and conditions, the first terms and conditions that we have at Non-Stop Kids Entertainment is we are entertainers, not babysitters. It is our responsibility to entertain the children. It is the responsibility of the parents and the guardians at the event to make sure that their children are well behaved. And I make sure that is pointed out to the client every single time a client books. They need to know that we are not babysitters. We are instead entertainers, and our job is not to discipline the children, right? Now, the reason I say that is because when you get a child that's out of line, like the child that you've described here, the first thing you might want to say is you want to say, guys, remember, you got to stay sat down. You want to stay sat down, blah, 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 blah. Then if this one particular person's carrying on, you might want to do it again. Now, on the third time, I'll break character, because my character in a kid show, I'm very over the top, I'm very excited, I'm very smiley. But the second that this happens, again, I'm going to break character. I'm going to go, guys, and I won't single out the child, but I'll say, guys, it's really important that you stay sat down facing the front. Okay, I can't do this show unless you're paying attention. So can everyone stay sat down for me? Thank you very much. Now, if it then carries on, the person who's being a nightmare, I'll move them to one side. I'll say, can you do me a favor? Can you go and sit over there? Because if I need to make sure that you're paying attention. You're not really paying attention at the moment, are you? So you're going to go and sit over there, and hopefully that will help. If it continues to happen and the stuff is going on that you're talking about, do not be afraid to, first of all, say, again, break character and say, excuse me, parents, I need you to do me a favor. I'm trying to do a show here. If your child is being a little bit disruptive, it's really important that you sit down with them at the front of the party, okay? Because I need to make sure that everyone is enjoying what I do. So, and it's not my job or my responsibility to discipline these children. I can't do that. So if any of the children are being naughty, could you please just make sure you're sitting with them so everyone can enjoy the show? Thanks very much. And this has probably only happened once, maybe twice in my entire career. If everything is just going a nightmare, I'll go to the person. If she's at the front and she's like doing all the stuff that you said, I'll be like, where's your parents? Excuse me, on the mic, excuse me, which, can I ask which child the parents are? Fantastic. Could you do me a favor, please? Could you take the child back to one side and just look after her, because unfortunately it's causing a bit of a problem with the show. Thanks very much. And I will make sure that the parents come and take the child and take them to one side. Now that causes its own level of problems, because they're going to be very unhappy. They're probably going to complain to the client. So as soon as the show's finished, I'll go to the client and I'll say, look, I'm very sorry I had to do that. I'm here to entertain all of the children, and that child was being a nightmare and was doing this. Unfortunately, I've only had to do that twice in my career, but it was affecting the show if I hadn't have pulled that child out at that point. You mentioned that she came up to you at the very beginning, right when you showed up, and she said to me, I'm going to stand behind this table the entire time and watch you and tell everyone how you do your tricks. I'm not going anywhere. If that happens before the show's even started, because you said she said that right at the very beginning, I will go to speak to her parents right there and then. And I'll speak to the parents and I'll say, excuse me, just to let you know, this is what your child's just said to me. So can you do me a favor? I can't do this show if that actually happens. So if that actually happens, would you mind, being the parent and stepping in? Would that be okay? Fantastic. And I'll go and speak to the client, and I'll say the same thing to the client. I'll say, hey, just so you know, I've just had this child say this to me. I'm an entertainer. I'm not somebody who can discipline the children. I've spoken to her parents, but if that does happen during the show, I am going to need the parents to step in. Boom. That's how you deal with it. That's my advice. I'm not going to go any more into this. I'm going to do a video at this at some point, but hopefully that answers all of your questions. Okay, so two more questions. The first question is something that a lot of people have said, and they've all said very, very nice things about Ryland on BGT. I'm going to do a video on this at some point in the future, but I'm very proud of Ryland's performance in the semi-final. I am super proud of Ryland's performance in the semi-final. I'm gutted he didn't make it through to the final. What we had planned for the final would have been amazing, but it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about that now. Ryland did great. I'm so proud of him. I'm going to hold off on any comments until we do a video at some point discussing this. Me and Ryland are going to talk about it together. But thank you. Thank you very much to everybody that's put comments about Ryland's act. I really appreciate it. He really appreciates it. It was an amazing experience. And I'm so happy that he represented the magic community in a really positive way. So there you go. That's another Q&A in the bag, guys. Thank you once again for joining me right here on Magic TV. Thank you once again for joining me on this Q&A. I really appreciate it. Don't forget, if you haven't seen Ryland's performances on BGT, go check them out by just searching on YouTube. Me and Ryland will be doing a video on it at some point in the next week or so. You want to see more videos like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. I'm going to be back again tomorrow with a whole bunch more videos. I'll be back this evening with another video, 3 more videos today. There's a lot going on right here on Magic TV. So once again, thanks for joining me, and I will see you again soon. My name's Craig from Magic TV.